How's it going, jumping ups? My name is BugTB and welcome back to another video. Today we're going to be doing the Machine Set Legendary Overview. But before we start today's episode, I wanted to say, I know I was meant to get Dark out first, but I couldn't actually find a Dark Marksman. Now, effectively, my game is becoming incredibly glitchy. Ooh, God, I can't speak. My game is becoming incredibly glitchy at the moment, and effectively, what happened was I got a Legendary Marksman, Dark Marksman, and when I tried to send him off to the garrison to kill him effectively, the game froze, and so I waited quite a while. I ended up having to restart my game because it just wasn't fixing itself, and effectively he got lost, along with a pretender captain as well, which ambushed me in the region. So effectively, I was completely mugged off, and so effectively we're going to be doing the machine set today, and then hopefully I can get the dark set out tomorrow. I've pretty much got literally like one piece of gear left for all of the sets, except for Marauder and Warmonger. I'm going to get two more for them too. But pretty much like Feral, Dark, Mystic, Terror, and Feral, like them, all of them ones, I've just got to get one more bit of gear, so I'll be able to get those ones out, hopefully. And so yeah, hopefully next episode will be dark. But yeah, as you see here on the screen here, we have got the machine set. It's a very odd looking armor set. I don't really like it that much. The sword and dagger have like an orangey sort of brass sort of thing to them, whereas the actual armor itself is like greeny, and it looks very similar to the armor of war. And I'm just like, it doesn't look very good at all. But it's one of the sets that you can have a lot more fun using. And so yeah, effectively I'm gonna get into the gear review, and so I'll catch you in a bit. Alright guys, so we're going to be looking at the legendary gear set for the Machine Tribe. Starting things off here, we have the Threshing Sword, level 80 as per usual, 169 damage, and a sword designed by the Machine Tribe. Like the description, this one has to be the worst one so far, but this one has a very interesting effect, giving that every glaive attack creates an explosion. And of course you get 15% increased melee damage when hit streak is over 10. That's quite good, that's quite a good secondary effect. And overall, it's a pretty interesting sword. Of course, glaive attacks are usually quite hit or miss because usually you don't have the time to charge them up and use them. So hey, I'll see if I can get some glaives into the siege gameplay, and so if we can see if that sword actually works. Moving on, we have the Threshing Dagger. This one causes quick throw to create an explosion every 8 seconds, also pretty cool. And 6 elf shot replenished per brutalized kill. It's alright. The secondary effect is a bit naff, but you know what? A quick throw creating explosions, that sounds pretty nifty. Moving on, we have the Threshing Hammer. Headshots have a 100% chance to create an explosion. Okay, sounds good. And 50% chance that the headshot poisons enemies. This, of course, means if the captain is vulnerable to both fire and poison, you effectively have a 50% chance to cause balefire on a headshot using this thing, which is pretty cool. Overall, hammers are like a bit odd in the game. They don't do as much damage as the bows, but they affect an area, so therefore they are better for crowd control. But usually if you get a longbow you get the same effect, and of course you'll end up with more elf shot. So hey, whatever. I mean, I actually like using the hammers more, not because like they're better, but rather it just looks cooler, because of course when he's using certain abilities he uses the hammer, and so it just makes a bit more sense, you know. But hey, moving on, we have the Threshing Armor. We get defeated enemies have a chance to explode. This one is like annoying as all hell. I hate it when I'm just walking around and bam, I just get blown up. And then of course 25% chance that the critical hit applies curse. That's just sort of okay. And then we have the Threshing Cloak, which has the same effect as the armor, except this time it does increase damage dealt by beast allies. So that one's probably worse. And then finally we have the Threshing Rune, and once again we have defeated enemies have a 25% chance of exploding, and this one gets increased damage dealt by Auric allies. So looking at the set bonus here, for 2 out of 2, Cool Followers summons Sappers, and Iron Guard summons even more Sappers. This is where the most fun in the build comes, because if you use Iron Guard, you end up summoning like upwards of 10 or 12 like odd Sappers, which just goes suicide bomb, and it is absolutely hilarious. But the set 4 out of 4 bonus is Elven Light scatters explosions around you. Effectively, although this sounds really good on paper, in practice it's not actually that good. I didn't find like the actual explosions were very significant. I feel like they should have just swapped this out for maybe like the overlight ability that Sauron uses in the final battle, where it becomes like sort of a wave of energy. Maybe they should have done something like that. I don't know, that would have been cooler. But overall, the 4-hour set bonus isn't actually as cool as it sounds, but you know what, it still looks okay. Of course, when we're using this build, we are going to be using all of the fire-themed attacks, so we're going to switch our Elven Light over to fire. Though saying that, if you wanted to get more effective Balefire, use the Poison Blast. Of course, I'm actually going to use the Poison Blast today because I want to try and get as much Balefire as possible. And so, of course, that also applies to the actual, like, Mighty Shot as well, but really, other than Elven Light, you don't have to worry about it. And of course, we are going to be using Iron Guard today because I want to just summon in those sappers, and it'll just look absolutely hilarious. But in terms of how I would run this build, now, of course, I've currently got a Wealth Gem equipped because I'm actually trying to grind up a lot of Mirian. Effectively, save scumming is destroying my game, and so I'm forcing myself to do everything legitimately, if that makes sense. And so effectively, I'm just grinding up using like the Wealth Gem. Of course, there has been requests for a video to do stuff on Mirian grinding, and so I will be doing a video. I don't know if I'll be able to get it out today as well, but I'll have to just see. Hopefully it'll come out tomorrow or something. But yeah, overall, how I would run this build. Of course, there are a lot of explosions going everywhere, and so this is the perfect opportunity to use the Warmonger set. Of course, if you remember, the 2 out of 2 set bonus for the Warmonger set is immunity. Well, no, it's not actually immunity to fire, but actually gives you health from killing enemies who are on fire. So therefore, you actually get some stuff from that. But the point is when you're using these sets, especially on the armor, if I get the Armor of War up here, I don't know where it's gone. It gives you the ability to recover health whilst you're on fire. Of course, that one isn't leveled up, so I'm not going to use that. But we are going to swap out the cloak, because I know that the cloak is pretty much the worst bit of the set. And of course, I haven't leveled that one up either. I'm an absolute moron. I should have prepared for this. I do actually have a Rune of War, so we could use that. Really, I guess I want to use the Sword of War, because the execution setting people on fire is cool. But of course, we could use Humiliator, just because we're going to be in that sort of fight. When you're in sieges, the Humiliator sword is just very, very useful. But we want to keep that going so we can get all the explosions going. The Threshing Hammer, maybe we could swap that out for the Warmonger Hammer, if I have it, which I don't. Sick. Well, we don't actually have any Warmonger things to actually use that are high enough level, which is a bit unfortunate. But as you see there, I would use the Armor of War. As you see there, it recovers your health. We're going to equip it anyway, even though it's underleveled. So therefore we're going to have a slightly less chance to kill, and of course we're only getting 9 health instead of 10 health. But I would recommend using the Armor and Cloak of War. So of course if we find a Warmonger guy, we could recruit him and just start leveling this up as we go. And then of course this one gives us less damage from range stacks. So that is how I would run this build. Of course these two aren't leveled up yet. I've got to find a Warmonger who, if I just recruit a Warmonger, I can get that up. But as you see here, this gives me 38% less damage from range stacks. That will also increase, and this gives me the same secondary effect, except we're going to become immune to that fire, because these two combined should give us 20 health when it's like maxed out, but of course it doesn't. And so yeah, that is how I would run this build to take advantage of the 4 out of 4 machine set guide, and of course become immune to all that fire that you're going to be spewing around. And so this is the build I'm going to be using in the gameplay in a minute. So yeah, pretty much guys, I'll catch you after the gameplay.
The boys are itching to get in there, myself included.
He think he can scare us? We do not fear pain. We bring pain.
resist. I am your master now.
Oh, my life for you! Life for you! To arms!
Okay, I'll train you. Get him! Get him! He's pushing forward. Weapons up! Forward! By your command, Bright Lords! Attack! More points! Oh, blink!
You think I'm about to keel over? What do I look like? A delicate pink skin?
Greetings from the Bright One! Knock him!
This is so brutal, Prince.
Break your concentration!
It doesn't matter if I'm catching or killing. I always get my prey. And you're next on my killing list.
Let me tell you how this little siege battle ends. The same way our last battle ended, with you dead. How long do you think you'll hold this fort, human?
Let all those who resist us look upon our victory here, and know that we reclaim what is ours. We punish all who stand against us, and for as long as it takes, we will hold back the Lord of Mordor.
Alright guys, that is the siege. As you saw there, the Machine Legendary set is pretty chaotic. The explosions were flying everywhere, and it was pretty hectic overall. Of course, as you saw that my damage was slightly lower than usual, and that was mainly because I wasn't running the Perfect Warrior gem. I was actually doing the Wealth gem this time because I wanted to get some Miriam. But effectively, the damage, even when I have that gem on, is not going to be as high as some of the other builds. As you saw that we were utilising quite a lot of Balefire through the hammer, and ended up using and combining effectively the Elven Light explosives with the Poison Blast. And so we were getting quite a bit of Balefire damage, but really, as you saw that, a lot of captains weren't affected by it. They were either immune to poison or fire. There was only like one captain, I think, that actually died from the Balefire. And that's just really a case of being in the late game. Pretty much elemental builds get completely shut down late game because captains just become immune to at least 3 out of the 4 main elements, and so it just becomes a big problem. But overall, as you saw that, I ended up actually leveling up the Warmonger like armor and cloak whilst I was at the beginning of that siege. And so effectively, the actual stat changes were quite minimal, except I did get quite a lot of extra maximum health. I'll show that up on the screen like now. But effectively there was very little difference in terms of how they actually performed in the game. But as you may have noticed, I was actually getting blown up a lot, and that's because even when using the Warmonger set to negate our fire damage, we still get hit by the enemies exploding from the Threshing Rune. This is why the machine set just isn't viable. Effectively 3 out of the 6 gear sets, you have this chance for enemies to explode, and as you saw, when that goes off, we have nothing to defend ourselves with. There isn't a single bit of gear in the game which can protect you from that. Even when we were using the Warmonger set, which protects us against fire damage, or say we were to get the cloak, which gives us immunity to fire full stop, that wouldn't stop the damage we just get from the explosion, and that is why this set just doesn't function for the 4 out of 4 set, like the 4 set bonus. However, you can still effectively use it for the 2 out of 2 set bonus, and if for doing that, I would recommend using the hammer and the dagger. Of course, you could use the sword if you like using your glaives, but as you saw there, it wasn't really that effective. It just looked pretty cool, and of course, when you can take things like Humiliator and stuff, it's not a good option. But really, what we had there was an interesting sort of set bonus. Okay, the cool followers summoning the sappers. As you see, I used it once, but because the cooldown is quite long, I guess if you use it with the mystic tech, you will bring that down. But effectively, the sappers for some reason just didn't immediately run towards the captain. They sort of follow you around, and then they ended up blowing up and didn't actually affect anything. That's not usually what happens, I'll be honest. Usually they just run straight to the captain and absolutely destroy him, and he gets gets stunned or whatever. But really, sappers aren't as effective as, say, summoning undead or something. Just because, like, as I said, captains can become immune to fire, and you get like a minor stun from it. The damage they do is not that significant. It's only really affecting Talion when they go off near you. And so really, this machine set is very weak. And as you saw, we were using the Armor of War in the gameplay, so it didn't look as bad. But the green, like, threshing armor looks just awful. And so overall, I must say that this set is one of the weakest I have reviewed as of now. I would say it could be the weakest. but I won't go as far as to say that just yet. But pretty much, guys, thank you very much for watching this video. I hope you enjoyed. Yeah, pretty much, don't forget to like, subscribe, all the fancy stuff. I hope you all have a wonderful day. Cue the music.